Francis Gilman.
We are live to talk about the last episode where the sweet, sweet Annabelle got sent home. Annabelle, how are you doing?
I'm all right, Lauren. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm not going to lie. Watching you get voted out the way you did was tough to watch. What are your thoughts on everything that went down with that vote?
At the time, it was jarring. It was a complete blindside. I feel like people always say that on the show, and then they watch it back and they're like, oh, well, maybe I should have known. But after talking to, my specialist alliance members and kind of everyone else about what went down, it really didn't sound like they gave me any inkling of what was going to happen. So I think it really was a bona fide blindside. And it was upsetting just because I didn't really see myself as somebody who was threatening enough to kind of go at that point in the game. I thought I probably would have been solid until the merge. But I mean, things happen that you can't control, and I understand the strategy behind what the other specialists did in voting me out. So I can't really fault them for it.
So what do you think the biggest reasoning was why they did pick you? It seemed as though, as you just said, you're not someone that's super threatening. You're a great ally, in my opinion, just from an outsider's perspective. So why do you think that happened?
Oh, well, thank you. I think based on what I heard as feedback, it sounded like they had lost touch with me a little bit, and that was completely my fault. I don't think I realized at the time that I was not being as participatory in conversations, not reaching out as often. I don't think I realized that at the time. I think I was getting caught up with everything else going on in life outside the game, and I probably didn't give 110% like I needed to kind of reassure my alliance members that I want to be part of their thing. I want to work with them continually. So I think even though they felt good about me of, the core four specialists on Nakota, I was the one they felt the least good about just because I had dropped off a little bit.
So I do want to talk about your alliance members, and it didn't really seem to come out in the episode, but did you have a number one in the game?
So actually thinking back on it, I didn't. And I think that was another error of mine. I never explicitly said to anyone, you're my number one, just because I really felt good with pretty much all of the specialists. I had talked to pretty much everybody even prior to the game, like who was on my Amiya, like at the initial tribe swap. But I never told anybody, you're my number one. And nobody said that to me either. And I think that probably was something I should have focused on a little bit more, was kind of getting that person to be my ride or die all the way to the end, who would have looked out for me no matter what. I kind of just saw the Nakota specialists as a unit, and I didn't really want to think about it, I guess, in terms of like who's on the top or the bottom and who is kind of paired off with who. So, but looking back, I didn't have a number one, and that's probably something I should have fostered. Oh, thanks, Ian.
From Ian there. So you talked about having a group of four of you. Did you guys say Final Four with each other, or what was the talk on that?
Yes. So, and I guess we know that it obviously was not a real intention, but Frank had initially made a Final Five deal with all of the specialists on Nakota just because we had been, performing so well as a tribe, and, he was really trying to iterate that he was with the five of us. So, and I can't speak for everybody else in the alliance if they believed him or not. But I think we all intended to go as far as we could together. Prior to that, though, I had a core four with Morgan, Ian, and McKenna, and then we had Jeremy and Phil as six. And obviously the initial swap kind of shuffled everybody's plans, and, we had to change the game a little bit. But that was kind of who we had intended to go as far as we could with, hopefully to Final Four, but really just at least to the merge or to a swap.
Let's talk about the swap at the beginning of the game, because obviously that impacted people's games in one way or another. When you ended up on the tribe that you did, what were your thoughts on that?
I was pretty excited. I think I was going to be excited regardless. I did not do a ton of detective work about the TRHS people in the cast prior to the game. Maybe I should have, but I didn't really want to go into it with preconceived notions. I just kind of wanted to get to know everybody as best I could with a clean blank slate, and just kind of make decisions from there about who I trusted. But Carrie was the one who picked me in the schoolyard pick, which I was excited about just because I wanted to play with, the other girls if I could, just because there were so few in the game. And to end up on a tribe with Jeremy and Morgan and Ian was great for me because, they were some of my original Alliance members. I was sad I didn't get the opportunity to play with McKenna or Phil or John, but that was how it shook out. But I was so lucky to be part of Nakota. They definitely were a great tribe all the way around. And in challenges, hardly any thanks to me because you saw how I performed on a couple of those. Not my strong suit. But yeah, no, I was very happy with the way the tribe shuffle went.
Hey, you did point out at Tribal Council that you did well in the trivia and that you did well with detecting the code. So you definitely did well in some areas. Yeah, a little shaky in the other ones, but that's okay.
Let's say I was batting 500, which is, got 2 that were terrible and 2 that were pretty solid. So that's not great, I guess, when you look at everyone else's averages. But I have my strengths, and I guess a lot of them don't apply to Survivor, and that's okay.
So with the first challenge, the one you struggled with a little bit with the cups and the picking up and rolling the dice, obviously that lasted longer for you as well with Ben than the episode showed. How much did nerves, how harder did it get as it went on? I'm obviously something you have to have a steady hand. I'm imagining as it becomes just you and just Ben, everybody's talking, it becomes even harder.
I think the pressure did make it worse. I think if I had been able to do it faster initially, if I had just gone super, super slow, I would have cut down on mistakes, but I guess I was trying to prioritize speed, and the speed was what was messing me up. And the length of the challenge, I could definitely feel how long I was taking. I was very self-conscious about it, and I'm very hard on myself, so that I think did lead to a lot of the shakiness. I'm not the best balance person anyway, but that definitely didn't help anything. So yeah, that definitely played a role, was the nerves.
Well, hey, you got through it. You did it.
Yeah, you definitely did. You got through it. But people in here are commenting that rolling the dice with your feet is genius. So you came up with that strategy then?
In the breakout room, when I was walking back and forth and attempting to practice with the cup balancing, I was thinking, this is going to be almost impossible for me if I have to stoop down every single time to roll a dice. I thought that would just really mess up my balance. So I thought there's got to be another way to do this. And I have really long toes, and generally just even around the house, if I accidentally drop something like a pencil on the floor, I'll instead of bending over, I'll just reach out my foot and kind of pick it up with my toes. So I have done that strategy, I guess, in other random areas of my life. So I tried to pick up the dice with my toe, and I'm like, oh, well, this will work easy, and that way I don't have to bend over. So I asked Ryan if that was something I could do or if that was cheating, and he was like, oh, okay, you can do that.
Lauren, I forget. I do remember, Anna, because, I was with the Nakota tribe for the setup of that, and I don't remember, we tested that for a while, and I don't remember if we talked about picking it up with the feet or not when we were testing it out.
So when we were testing it, we didn't talk about picking up with our feet. We did talk about people crawling, which Miami did use that strategy a little bit.
And Annabelle beat the dream team of the testing stages.
Yeah, we didn't come up with that. I thought it was brilliant when Ryan told me he asked me about that as well for clarification. I said, yeah, go for it, because that's a brilliant strategy. And it did end up working out for you guys really well.
Thankfully, yes. I think the toes were my saving grace there. Had I actually have had to bend down and scoop everything up, no, I'd probably still be there trying to balance.
Were you ever considered to be on the puzzle portion? Were you always going to be on the cups? Because I know you seem to be strong in that area as well. So not sure kind of how you ended up where you were.
It's funny how you say that.
She didn't like that question. She booked it. She's like, that was a dumb question, Lauren. I'm leaving.
She did not like the question. Okay, I guess why we're getting Annabelle back, we can kind of talk through the episode. Ryan, Annabelle, you good?
Yeah, sorry, did my internet cut out?
It did for a second.
Oh, my bad, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Did y'all see the jigsaw puzzle I was working on? Okay, I was going to say, I literally have a jigsaw puzzle on my kitchen table right now.
Okay.
I thought about volunteering for the puzzle portion, but if there's anything I've learned from watching so many seasons of Survivor, it's that the puzzle is kind of the make.
God, Annabelle.
It's cutting out a little bit. She just.
It's kind of the hero's role, the puzzle. So I knew that I would either win it for us or blow it, and I didn't want to put myself in that position, and we needed more balancers. So I thought, okay, I can figure that out. And that was the wrong choice, but.
Yeah, it was also, I'm going to shift to this a little bit. In the episode where we saw you talking about looking for the hidden immunity idol and everything, were you working on finding that with other people, or were you just looking by yourself? What was happening with that?
I was just looking by myself. When I had downtime at work, I would kind of pick up my notepad and start scribbling things and try and decipher all of it, and didn't get very far. Came up with a lot of options, and none of them were correct, as you guys saw in my Facebook messages. So we talked about it a little bit on the Nakota specialist group, and none of us really had any idea either. And it sounds like, based on the episode, that Corey was the one who ended up getting it. So I don't think they left me out of that, at least.
And did you ever know Corey had it or anything, or any indication of who had it from your tribe at all?
I did not know. I actually thought Logan might have it. I figured it was on the TRHS side, but I would have guessed Logan over Corey. Just because Logan's really good at puzzles. And I know that he probably had a little bit of time to kind of work on that, just because, he's 19, so he doesn't have like a full-time job like some of us do. So he had, maybe just a little bit more time to puzzle it out. But I'm glad Corey was able to get it. That's impressive for sure, because that was a tough clue.
Well, Corey was handed the idol by Denny, basically.
That's right. Yes. Because my grandma figured it out, right? And then Denny passed it along to him. And they swapped, right? Okay.
Yeah. So I don't think it was. No one on Nakota was really that close to finding it up until that point where Corey was actually given the idol by Denny.
That's interesting. I think that's amazing that Phil was able to figure that out. It sounds like really he was the only one who was able to figure that out.
Yeah, that was a tough one to get right off the bat for sure. But once it's figured out, it makes sense then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, you look back and you're like, oh, well, duh. What was I thinking? But it's always easy in hindsight.
That's true.
I want to talk a little bit about the TRHS members that were on the Nakota tribe. Is there anyone in particular that you felt closer to, or that you were always trying to swing to your side?
I was trying to talk a little bit of game with Rob. He was kind of like the main person I was talking to, like prior to the tribal council where I was voted out. So I felt like I had a pretty solid relationship with him, and I was talking a little bit of game with him. And then I really liked everybody on the tribe. I didn't really get to know Sam very well. He just didn't have, I guess, a lot to say to the specialists, which is fine. I mean, that's how it goes sometimes. But I really liked everybody. I think I have probably the best friendship, like, of the TRHS people with Carrie, I would say. I think she's awesome.
That's awesome. I want to shift to Frank now a little bit. So obviously he was voted out first in that whole swap. Were you confident when you saw him on your tribe that, hey, Frank is still going to be with us?
No, I wasn't that confident. I think we had talked about in pregame how Frank and Pook were people that we were skeptical of, just because we didn't really think their allegiance would be with us because of their existing relationships with TRHS people. Well, thank you, Carrie. And Pook and I had actually like talked more in pregame, and he actually seemed excited to meet the specialists and play with us, and he went very far, I felt like, to kind of prove his loyalty to us, at least in pregame. So when Frank was the one that I ended up on a tribe with, I was a little nervous, but I mean, Frank's obviously a very good player, and I knew that if I could attempt to work with him and attempt to get him on my side, hopefully it would carry me pretty far in the game. But I didn't end up having, I guess, as strong of a bond with Frank as some of the other specialists did. So it didn't end up working out for me like that.
Would you have ever flipped on any of the specialists from your tribe? Like they did to you in the vote. Would you have ever done that to any of them?
I think if I felt like it was my only option, yes, because you obviously have to do what you can to stay alive. And talking in the post game, Ian had told me that the only reason he did it was because he had heard that he was the target. So, I mean, I can't fault him for that. He has to do what he can to stay alive. So if I had been presented with an opportunity to say, hey, let's get Morgan out, or let's get Ian or Jeremy out, you can vote with us. It definitely would have been difficult, and I think I would have been pretty upset about it. But if it made sense for my game, and if it, kept me alive a few more days, then I would have considered it. Yes.
Yeah, it's tough to know what's going on sometimes in the game, just because everyone's having so many different conversations with each other.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I think that's one of the hard parts of playing Survivor online. Because we weren't allowed to send screenshots or anything like that. So everybody's kind of talking to everybody, and there's a lot going on. And it's not like in the TV show where you can see people sneak off to the well or go down the beach or anything like that. There's no visuals necessarily. So it's a lot more deceptive, I think.
Were you prepared for how many hours that this game was going to require?
No, I was not. And I think that was ultimately my downfall. I would try and spend a lot of time on group Zoom calls, but I don't think I gave enough time and effort to sort of fostering individual relationships with people once the game started. I certainly did in pregame. But once things got started, I kind of got a little bit complacent, I think, with my alliance, and just tried to be, as present and as helpful as I could in a group setting. And then I think I let that slip a little bit. And I should have devoted more time to that. And I guess I just wasn't that prepared for it. But I think also I'm somebody who enjoys being really busy, and I like having a lot of things going on. So it wasn't like I had devoted 110% of my time to Survivor. Like, there would be times where I had a tennis match that I had scheduled, and then I would like run home for the challenge at 9 or something like that. Like, I probably did spread myself too thin.
Yeah, there's tons of people agreeing about it being basically a full-time job. And I definitely, playing in season 1, learned that as well. But just the way it was presented to me, it was told, oh, it's going to be 1 to 2 hours a night, and then you're going to vote someone out if you have to go to tribal council. No, it's all day, every day, because if you're not talking to someone, they're talking to somebody else.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. I think that's a lesson learned. If I do kind of ever decide that I would want to test my luck and try again, I think I would have to really mentally get myself in a place where I'm going to give 110% every day.
So you would play this again?
Potentially. I think when the opportunity was initially presented by Phil and Alexa, I didn't really know what I was getting into, but I was so excited because I was a new patron at the time. So I thought it would be a great way to meet other people in the community. And I don't think I'll ever play Real Survivor. Just so this was a good opportunity to kind of try it out. Also, I mean, there's a pandemic going on. Like, what else am I going to do? There's only so much right now. So, but I think, yeah, I would potentially play again. I don't know if I'd necessarily really do any better, but I would certainly try to learn from my mistakes and apply some of the same strengths from my game and try to correct the mistakes if I did end up in another game, yes.
What would you change up about your game?
Like I said, I think I would dedicate more time to kind of the individual relationships with people on a one-on-one basis. And I think I would try to establish a number one person as early as I could. I think I would practice flip cup and balancing, and maybe maybe some other maybe some puzzles, some stuff like that.
Well, that was your first season. We got many different things for next season.
Awesome.
We do.
I think also I was not running through, like when I thought that we were going to tribe swap, I remember sitting down and being like, okay, how screwed could I possibly be here depending on how this shakes out? And I was like writing out scenarios. And I thought that was really helpful for me, but that was really the only time that I did that. So I think I would need to take the same analytical strategy and just kind of write things down and map it out and really think about all the different options and avenues. If I were to play again, I would kind of add that factor to it.
Did anybody in pregame on the specialist side mention that they might switch it up early on? Like first, before we even start, like predict it.
Switch it up as in?
Like what we did, the swap. Did anybody mention, hey, what if we don't start, specialist first TRHS?
I don't know if anybody remembers this from pregame, but I remember saying, I feel like they're going to do something funky because we had all that time to pregame. I didn't think it would end up the way that it did, but I was like, something's got to happen. Like, there's no way. This is too much time. They revealed the cast so long ago. I don't think anybody anticipated a complete shuffle like that, though, that I heard of at least.
And now as like a, put yourself on like a viewer standpoint right now, you mentioned some mistakes you might have made and you don't blame Ian and all that. Do you think, though, it was the right move from Dakota? Or do you think they should have, like, obviously in hindsight, it probably would have been a specialist anyway because they would have done the Steela vote as mentioned in the episode.
Right.
But, like, what do you think? Like, obviously it's your downfall, so you're probably going to be like, yeah, they shouldn't have done it. But, do you think it makes sense? Do you think they'll have success moving forward?
I think it was the right move, obviously for Ian because he had to save himself. And I think if Morgan and Jeremy and Ian felt more comfortable as a group of their three moving forward, then that's what they ultimately needed to do. I know how far they all made it just, and talking to them in post game. And I think that, ideally I would like to say that they would have made it farther had I been there because I would have been a loyal vote. I probably wouldn't have flipped after the merge had I made it that far. But you always have to move forward with who you feel the most comfortable with. And I think that if that's what they felt like they needed to do, then it was the right move. Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, with this game too, that comes with so many what ifs, and then you look back at moves that you could have done or should have done, and that you didn't do, and that's what makes this game so difficult because a lot of it does come down to luck as well, as you said, depending on who you get on a tribe with and all of that. Mm-hmm. I do have one other question, and that is.
I have one more too.
Okay, perfect. I want to talk about anticipation of a tribe swap. Do you think a tribe swap? Oh, sorry. Do you think a tribe swap would have been beneficial for your game or not?
I think it actually would have been beneficial because if we had swapped to, let's say, like if we had swapped at 15 people into 3 tribes of 5 or something like that, there's nowhere to hide on small tribes. And because I am probably not very threatening to most people, I don't think that would have been a hindrance to me. Like, I think somebody who, like a Frank or a Pook, I think they need a bigger tribe to kind of hide behind other people. But I think someone like me with a lower threat level would do pretty well on a smaller tribe. So I think it would have been cool unless I obviously had gotten swap screwed and ended up with like all my Amia people or maybe some of the TRHS people that I didn't have as strong of a relationship with. But I think I would like to think I would have been able to navigate through it, but I mean, who knows?
So I was going to ask a similar question just relating to the swaps. You know, I took this season for myself as more of a fan. Like the last season with NSFW that I did a lot more of the stuff. I watched all the confessionals all season. This season I didn't do that. So everything's kind of new to me as it plays out. I just know the result, right?
Right.
But like it's amazing to me seeing every single episode, I think since episode like 2, has been talking about a tribe swap. Everybody's like, well, we're going to swap, so we got to plan for this. And like there hasn't been a swap yet. So it's like, at some point, do you just have to play with what's going on now? Are people thinking too much about what might change instead of like focusing on what's happening now?
I think that's what happens when you get 20 super fans together. I
Right.
mean, everybody knows the game so well, and we know at this point that tribe swaps are a staple of Survivor, and they are. And I think that's why it was on everybody's minds so heavily. And I think that, along with the dynamic of originally starting in our patron groups and then shuffling, a swap would mean that you could get back with some people from your patron group that you didn't end up on the same tribe with. So I think it was a mix of people thinking and contingency planning a little bit too far in advance, along with the fact that they were probably just excited to kind of meet back up with some people on the other side.
Gotcha.
I actually do have one more question.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anyone in this game you would have never worked with?
Besides
I don't want to say that there's nobody I would have never worked with, just because there were a few people that I really didn't get the opportunity to meet and get to know. So I don't feel like I can accurately make.
Well, I guess I can restate it. Who were you leery of?
Who's I leery of? I mean, Frank, to be honest, just because he won the mini. We know he's a heck of a player. We know he works the night shift, so he has all that time after the challenge and after tribal council, talk to people and run the numbers. I think I was a little bit leery of him. I was glad when he made that final 5 offer. I'm not entirely sure I believed him. But I mean, you obviously have to say yes to stuff like that when it's presented with you. So I'd say I was a little leery of him. I think the only other person I would say I was leery of, I knew Karen was a heck of a strategic mastermind from her original season that Lauren, you played on. And again, I didn't get to play with Karen because she was on the other side and she was TRHS. And I guess I was leery of her in the sense that I knew what she was capable of, but she was somebody that I potentially would have wanted to work with had we made it to like a swap or a merge together. I think she would have been a cool person to align with.
Yeah, Joe brought up, why is everyone skeptical of Karen?
I think she just has like a very like pensive, like thinker vibe about her. You look at her and you're like, okay, she knows what's going on. She's a smart cookie. So it's definitely a good thing. I mean, like I said earlier, like everybody has strengths and some of them apply to Survivor and some of them don't. And I think Karen's probably a very intelligent person and a good thinker. And, maybe that makes people skeptical of you in Survivor, but that makes you a huge asset outside of the game.
I can vouch for that. I've seen Karen play 3 games now, and she's never blindsided anybody, and yet everybody thinks she's going to, and she gets blindsided every time.
Yeah,
I
don't know.
I was never skeptical of Karen. She was in my alliance to the end, if we could have made it work. So I was never skeptical of Karen.
Yeah, she's a great person. I've had the opportunity to play a couple of just like fun games like Among Us and stuff like that with her and some of the rest of the cast. So it's been a lot of fun, just kind of enjoying like the social stuff of it after the fact.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been great. Annabelle, do you have anything else that you want to add or anything you didn't get a chance to mention or that you want to touch on?
I guess the only thing I wanted to add was just a thank you to you guys for having me tonight, and then for putting the game together and for hosting. I can't imagine how much time that took with the clues and going through all the confessionals and just planning the challenges and everything like that. You guys put obviously your heart and soul into this. And Ryan, I don't know how you did it 2 seasons in a row. I don't blame you for taking a little bit more of a fan perspective on this go around.
3 seasons.
3. Oh, that's right, because you did the mini too, right?
Well, I did one. I did one of these with my friends and family when the pandemic started, and then I ran the 2 on TRHS. So.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
When Jeff Pro
Survivor
and too wrinkly, are you gonna apply for that gig?
Jeff Probst will be 100 years old. He'll look the exact same. We all know that.
That's true.
So much Botox.
Yeah.
No, I don't really have anything else. It was, the vote out was a blindside, and it was upsetting, and I was kind of upset and cranky about it for a couple days, but I came back around, and being able to talk to like John and McKenna, who were voted out around the same time as me, that was pretty helpful, just to be able to talk to somebody and not feel super isolated. But yeah, it was a fun experience. I'm so glad I got to meet everybody and get to meet y'all, and it was a great way to kind of get my feet wet with the patron community and with the Survivor community.
Yeah, we were very happy that you were able to play. Overall, it was an awesome cast. So thankful that you're able to be part of this season. And with that, I just want to let everyone know tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern time, the next episode will be dropping. Annabelle, thank you so much for joining us. It's easy to see that everyone has mad respect for you, and you're very loved by the group and the cast. So
thank you, Lauren.
On that, I would just want to say good night, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you for having me, guys.